Well, hello, greetings, everybody. Welcome to another Tech Tip Tuesday here, rounding down the end of June, man, last week of the month already. My name's Ken Close. I'm a member here in the Healy World USA. And I'm joined by my awesome co-host, Jake Barron, head of operations for the Americas. Hey, Jake, how you doing?
Great. How you doing, Ken? Hello, everyone.
Hello, everybody. So, if you guys are new to Tech Tip Tuesday, well, let me tell you a little bit about what we're going to do tonight. This is a chat-based forum where you guys put your questions in our chat, and Jake and myself, and who's our customer service? Is it Christian tonight?
Yes, Christian's helping out in the chat tonight.
Hey, Christian, hi. Thanks for being here. So he's in the chat. And so we will be helping to solve the mysteries of whatever's going on with your Healy. What we can't do is we aren't going to be able to diagnose, treat, talk about, or advise anything regarding to health issues or diseases or disorders. So hopefully that makes sense to everybody. I'm excited about solving some mysteries. How about you guys? Are you ready, Jake?
Always ready to get started on Tech Tip Tuesday.
All right, well, let's have some fun. Let's see, what do we got already in our chat room? We have a hello, and then we have James that says that I use iPhone 8s for running my current 12 Healys. You got 12 Healys? That's a lot. If I were to switch to Android phones for additional Healys, which 4 to 6 year old, it's a 4 to 6 year old Android, would work the best? So in the app, when you go to your app store and you select the any of the Healy apps, there's going to be a drop down arrow for information, and it's going to say if you do it from the device itself, it's going to say this device is compatible. It does vary based on the app, so the app's going to kind of tell you what's compatible and what's not. But for the most part, the operating system level is going to be one of the determining factors, because there is older hardware that just won't operate with the newer software versions. And I know that I think we're up to, what is it, AOS 11, as well as, I think it's 11 with the Android as well. Is that where we're at now as a minimum operating level? I think it's somewhere in there.
Yeah, I'm not sure. It says within the app itself in the App Store when you go to look.
Yeah, and so as the apps upgrade and the app developers improve services, function, all those different things, then new requirements are going to emerge. So it's important to take a look at the App Store itself, and then find out what version of device or model of device is compatible with that app. Okay, I know that I've got some older iPhones, some older devices too, and tablets, and some of them will not operate with the new with the Advisor app at all. We tend to have a lot more success with the microcurrent or the Pink app, but make sure you check with the App Store. I couldn't really give you a model. Sorry, James.
Yeah, and I'm not familiar too much with different Android phones as well, but I'm sure there's quite a few out there in that age range that would work perfectly fine, though.
Yeah, definitely. Again, check on the app itself. When you go to your App Store, there's a drop down arrow that talks about compatible devices by model. All right. Next question. Can you advise me on what to do with my Healy while flying on an airplane? That's a great question. I travel all the time with my Healy. In fact, I just had this question earlier today about going through the TSA security measures, right, with your device. So folks, I wear my Healy when I go through security, right? I do. And I don't know, I always make sure I have extra time, because most of the time I'm going to wind up getting a pat down and that's okay. But I say it's a medical device. It's my medical device. And so security is not going to limit you to your needs, right? We have the right to have our personal needs and take what we need traveling with us. So Healy is one of those devices. I've put mine through the scanning devices, and it's not going to hurt it. So, again, when you're on the actual airplane, the only thing that airlines don't want is they don't want certain frequencies being transmitted, aka your cell phone, right? The rules are very clear. Put your cell phone in airplane mode. Well, when your device, whether it's your cell phone, your tablet, whatever, is in airplane mode, it still transmits Bluetooth, which still gives the opportunity to connect with Healy. Okay, so you can still run it on the airplane. Until we have other rules specifically, I do it. I use it. There are no other rules, by the way. Okay. What else we have here? Pam says, can we use deep cycle H with our coil? I don't find it on my app and wonder if it was accidentally not added. I have the original Healy resonance, and that was one of my frequency groups, and I would like to use it with a coil. So the deep cycle and deep cycle H, this is a great question because they're two different pages, right? One came with additions up to a certain date, and then it was transitioned over to the deep cycle H. What was that break? Was that July 2021?
Yeah, that's when it switched over, because deep cycle was included for free as a period of time, and then July 2021 Healyvisor Search was swapped in for that.
And the deep cycle H was actually launched.
Yeah. That's the only difference between the two are those first three program groups. Application 1, 2, and 3 versus the three different ones in the deep cycle H. So they're overall very similar. And as far as if you can use them with the coil, I mean, even deep cycle, if you pull up the program group in the Healy 2 app, it does have that IMF symbol in the top right corner for all 12 of those programs, which then indicates that it is okay to use with the coil.
All right. Remember, how do we determine the compatibility with a coil? Well, the IMF, or the individual microcurrent frequency symbol, it says it. Actually, IMF says it right there at the top right of the program itself. It'll say that. That means it's compatible with the coil. That's all that means. And if we're talking about compatibility with the coil, it's a variation of frequency. The ones that you'll see that are not applicable to the coil, the ones that are not systemic, they're acute, right? The pain programs, some of the learning programs, the things that are more acute, designed to be implemented directly into the body, non-magnetically through microcurrent. So look for that symbol. If you guys aren't sure, let me see. I can, while we're looking at another question here, I can pull my phone up. We can show it on the screen here.
Okay.
But if you want to hit another question, I'll pull that up.
Yeah, there's let me see, I think this is the next one here. Yeah, so it says, I heard you can run a MagHealy and a Healy at the same time. Do you have to operate them from different devices? So that's a great question too. And yes, what you heard is correct. You can run both a MagHealy and a Healy at the same time, and you can actually control them from the same device. So the key there, though, is, let's just say you're running a program first with your MagHealy. So you open the Healy 2 app, you connect to your MagHealy, and then you start the program. So in order to connect to a different device, the quickest way is just to go ahead. Once you get the program set and running at the intensity that you want, you can just hard close that app completely, then turn on your regular Healy device, start the app again, connect to your Healy device, and then start a program there too. The only sort of limitation there is that if you want to do, say you started the MagHealy first, you want to change the intensity, change the program, whatever, you would have to repeat that process again, hard close, go back to the MagHealy, connect to that MagHealy, adjust the program, change the program, start a new program. You kind of have to go back and forth like that, but you can run multiple Healy devices from the same app. You can just, or MagHealys. For instance, yeah, we were at an event, I remember last summer, I believe it was, and just from my phone, I went through and I connected to 6 different MagHealys and got them all running programs. So you just go through that same process, and the program, I was running the atmosphere program, so those continue to run. There's no time limit on those, which works out well, until the battery dies, or if it's plugged in, it just keeps running and running and running. But yeah, once you do it the first time, and you get the hang of it, it's pretty easy to do, switch back and forth and go from there. So.
Yeah, this new app, the new pink app, is awesome. Well, the new blue one too. That's coming. More about that's coming. So let me show you. I'm going to share my screen, and we'll just take a peek here at what I was talking about in regards to how do you identify a IMF program or one compatible with the coil. And here's how you do it. So within the app itself, if you are running your, here's your Healy. Let's get the pink app up. All right, here's your different program pages. And each page, if we just go to the gold cycle at the very top here, you see that small in gray IMF there at the top right of the icon for each program. You'll see that IMF. That means it is individualized microcurrent frequency, which also means compatible with the coil. Now, if we go down here, let's take a look at the stimulation page. Now you see that that symbol, those letters are not there, because these are designed for essentially direct contact with the body, direct infusion, more microcurrent than the magnetic signaling. Let's go to the learning page and do the same kind of thing. If you take a look at the programs that are that say acute after them, so learning acute, concentration acute, exam acute, those two will have none. It won't have that symbol, and here's why. Let me just click on learning acute. You go to acute, it says, it shows you how to connect basically the Healy to your body, and it's right there with the sticky pads at the mastoid bone, right at the base of the skull, upper cervical. You're applying this information essentially directly up to the brain. So this is for direct stimulation with the microcurrent. All right, and you'll see that kind of theory or that principle holds true if we go to the pain and we go to say just the top right one where it says pain stimulation. You see again, how are we connecting? We're connecting via the sticky pads to the mastoid bone, designed to implement information or signaling right to the brain. So other programs where they're more systemic, you're connecting to the entire system. Let's just say pure at the top there. You see you're connected to the wristbands or sticky pads at the wrists, designed to go systemically through the whole system of the body. And therefore you can apply a magnetic signal when you connect the coil. Okay, does that make sense?
Yeah.
All right.
Great. Yeah, thanks, Ken.
There we go.
So Izzy had a comment here. She said hi, and she was fixing her car. So maybe she was out there with the MagHealy running the car program inside her car to help to optimize the energy to get things going there.
That's right.
Follow up on that deep cycle question. Pam was saying that she doesn't have the option to use deep cycle H. So yeah, if you had the grandfathered Healy from prior to June or so prior to July 2021, again, the deep cycle program is essentially the same thing as deep cycle H. So you're not really, I would say, missing anything significant. It's just slight differences to those first 3 programs. So go ahead and just continue to use deep cycle, the one that you have, and you can use it with the coil, and all good.
Yeah, absolutely. I didn't pull up the deep cycle from my program page, but
yeah.
But that the ones that are on there that had that IMF emblem are gonna be compatible. Or if it's the grandfathered one, it is 3 little connected dots, right? But the new app is going to show all the new information, right?
Mhm.
You should be using the new Healy 2 app by now. Highly
Yeah.
encourage everybody to go that route. All right. Let's see, where else are we here? Am I behind a little bit?
I think we're on this. This is a interesting question. Maybe this is one for you here, Ken. Can you explain cell epigenetics in the vitalization program, please?
I love this. Okay, so let's go. So epigenetics itself, in fact, here's a fun part about what Healy's doing. Epigenetics is essentially the influence of the cell outside of the cell. Okay, there's a energetic influence on cell expression. This happens, you know, in everything we do. Even a thought that you have has an influence on the cell expression because of the energy generated by the thought. So when we're working with Healy, Healy is putting very distinct signals into the body, whether it be with the wristbands or the coil or the MagHealy, same thing. And these are either electron flow through the wristbands or magnetic energy through the MagHealy and the coil. And that information, or I should say those frequencies are information that contains signaling frequencies. The cell structures, the genetic code, 3% of that genetic code is fixed. In other words, it's going to be a skin cell, a bone cell, a muscle cell, whatever. 97% of that genetic code is adaptive, reading the environment, so that the host, the cell within the host, within the body, within the person, can survive its environment and shift and change with its environment. So epigenetics, specifically within the bioenergetic vitalization, is designed really to work on that stem cell level, where we're really influencing a cell's outcome in terms of what quality and kind, more so than it being skin or bone or muscle, but what quality of kind of skin, bone, or muscle. So the bioenergetic vitalization page was always designed to be more at the stem cell propagation or influence. So those signalings are designed to whatever the program purpose is. When it's epigenetics, it's influence outside the cell. So we're essentially building a better quality and kind. The frequencies within that program, the frequencies are designed. I mean, you can watch the program and know exactly what they are, but experience and studies has determined where they're most effective within the body. I don't know all of the study and the science behind which frequencies do what, but the stimulation is around optimizing the cell structures outside of their development, outside of the cell itself, as it's being created. Does that make sense? So think about this for a second, folks. 800,000 cells per second are being recreated in your body. For every second, there is a cell division process. Some of those are bone cells, some of those are skin cells, but the total overall within the organism, within the body itself, is 800,000. And when you're running your Healy, the creation or the birthing of that cell is under the influence of these frequencies, of this energy. And when that energy is of highest quality, of highest, most effective form, in other words, the frequency itself is known by studies, by experience, by many applications to build vitality, to build healthy cells themselves. Then every one of those cells is optimized. Does that make sense? All right. Go ahead and ask more questions if that just opened the door for more. Sometimes it does. What would be, let's see, there's a question here. What would be the benefit of running 2 programs at the same time? So I do this often. when you're running two programs at the same time, let's say you're running two microcurrent programs at the same time. In other words, you have two sets of wristbands. I don't recommend putting them on the same proximity. You can put two around your ankles, two around your wrists, but or I like to run the coil and the wristbands, so two different Healys running that. But you can also run the MagHealy with some Healy program. The benefit here is what I just said. So remember that 97% of that genetic code that's being passed on to the next cell structure is adaptive, reading the environment, the energetic environment. So if you've got microcurrent going through the body with very specific frequencies on that microcurrent as the carrier wave, and you have magnetic signaling coming into the body via the coil or the MagHealy, now you're essentially getting a twofer on the influence. Here's my caution. My caution is that we don't run, I don't know, non-succinct programs. So in other words, you're running maybe the learning and the root chakra. Now, there's nothing wrong with that. Those two, the learning program and the root chakra, there may be some things that need to be learned within the root chakra, new information to get over some traumatic experiences or embodied emotional conditioning, whatever. But what I like to do is I like to stay within a certain page group, right? For instance, on the fitness page, if I'm going to run the muscle program with the microcurrent, I'm probably going to run the strength program with the coil, right? Those two, when I'm building a genetic code for the cell systems, the microcurrent or the electron flow through my body is stimulating muscle synthesis, and the magnetic signal being propagated from the coil is promoting strength. So now I'm building strong muscle cell systems. Does that make sense? So that way we're kind of building a more coherent system. That's the advantage. The more you put into the body at once, and again, another place of caution is that when you dump a bunch of information onto the body and the body has a response, if it's a difficult response, how do you know which bit of the information was the causation? It's a good idea to really get to know what these programs do for you, with you, and to you, right? Give yourself some experience before you start mixing and matching and playing, mad scientist. Just take your time, listen to your body, hydrate, and then spend time grounding the body to bring it back through into balance. All right, does that make sense?
Yeah, and Ken, I think, more recently with the MagHealy, I know you're talking about the Healy device there, but one of the big benefits of the MagHealy is that for the first time ever with a single device, you can run any of the McMakin programs which use two frequencies at the same time. So you're talking about pairing two programs together. The MagHealy, it's not using microcurrent, but it's that the same idea that there's benefits to using more powerful benefits to using two at the same time. Exactly.
And the McMakin system, Carolyn McMakin has studied these coherent frequencies and paired them on purpose because she's built this system. She calls it one for the issue and one for the tissue, right? A frequency for the issue and a frequency for the tissue. So they're married together specifically based on research, based on results. So it's not like you're guessing what frequencies are going in. Yeah. They're already built within the program and known to have specific benefit. When we're picking multiple programs ourselves, now we're kind of guessing, right? So the McMakin is perfect for already known pairs. Mm-hmm. Yep. Okay, so let's see. Where's the question right here? A comment. I took part in the beta test for the new Healy Blue app. Totally loved it. Awesome. Do I now delete it, then download new one when it comes out? So the beta testing, I think, is still going, right? I have 70 some days left. You don't need to delete anything. That transition is going to be organic. I mean, there's going to be a lot of information coming. So
Yeah, I will say, tomorrow, join us tomorrow. There's going to be a live training with our Chief Product Officer, Martin Whitman. Is going to go over some of these details will be discussed, like, okay, what happens when I transition from beta to the other, and some of the benefits, of course, also the new Analyse 2 app. But I'll put I'll find the link again, put it into the chat. There was an email that sent out to register for that training. It's at noon Eastern tomorrow. And again, we'll put the registration link in there. Hopefully you can join that. But those types of details, there's nothing you need to do right now. And actually the official launch date for the Analyse 2 app is going to be July 5th. So that's a week from tomorrow, July 5th, Wednesday. So that will, when the final, go live versions of the app will be available, which is very exciting. We'll be talking a whole lot more about the Analyse app too, coming up here throughout the month of July and beyond, because there's so many great new features, make it much easier to use for everybody.
Yeah, the advantage is we've got all this experience with the current Blue app, right? And the principles, functionality. Now it's just finding maybe where some of the stuff is, what it looks like, a little bit different, but just expanding on that. So it's not like we're going to have to relearn it all over again. We're going to have a good baseline of understanding. But those of you who've been doing the beta test, you know what I mean? You see the cool stuff you like, and you've made suggestions, hopefully, about what you would like to see improved, whatever. So yeah, it's going to be fun. It'll be great. Let's see. So Izzy has a comment question. When scanning the MagHealy water programs, and I want to vibrate the top 5, would I keep the Healy on me or against the water? I would then run the first program with the MagHealy on the top of the water. Okay, so when you're doing an analysis, what she's talking about here, an analysis, and you're using the MagHealy programs, it comes up with the top 5 categories. And then within those categories, you come up with the top 5 programs. So you run those. I mean, if it comes up with one that's about, say, the water, then you run that into you can run it within your water. Remember, the body's water too. So any program designed for water, it's not just necessarily for what you're drinking, but also for this entire biological organism that is, I don't know, it's mostly water anyway. So I always go by the recommended sequence. There's one that's first, and the second one that's second, and so on and so on. And then I run them. If it's regarding water, you can run it on your water. You can run it on your body. There, I say, be the experiment, right? Do it in one fashion and then do it in another. The body ultimately is the receiver. The body itself is the receiver. The body is the one who's in a disarray that needs the alignment. So, eventually giving it to the body anyway is the goal. All right. Pam says, so sorry, another question. Don't be. This is why we're here, right? Bring it on. Is it okay to leave my coil attached when using the blue dot? We've gotten this question many times, and there's nothing that says that it's not okay. I'll put it that way. So the coil itself, if you guys see the coil here, you can kind of see in the picture here, it is a coil. That's why it's called such, but it is a coiling of conductive material. It's called a trace, very thin metallic material below the surface of the resin, and then connected to these 2 probes is the wiring within. And when you send a microcurrent from Healy through that coil, the electron flow creates a magnetic emission, and it propagates outward from the coil. So when you have the coil attached to Healy, right, the signal from that is there's 2 actual magnetic patterns, and they're 180 degrees off from each other. So one propagates in somewhat of a telescopic, kind of more of a cone shape this direction, and the other one in a cone shape the other direction. And when you're wearing Healy on your body, it's going outward and inward to you, right? So it's magnetic energy being transmitted out. When you run the blue dot, there is no energy being sent through those two little ports that the coil would plug into. Right? There's no microcurrent being sent out of that. So you're not really doing anything. It's not in the way. I mean, it's not consuming more power, if that's what we're going to base on. Is it good or not good? It's not consuming any more power. Healy is connecting with you via the quantum sensor, essentially through quantum entanglement. So it's not necessarily needing to have any physical interface with you. So there's no study, there's no information that says you can't do it or it's bad. So there you go. I take mine off. That's just me though. Okay.
So do I.
So does Jake. He takes his off. Okay. Fred says if you run a program, say fitness, in the blue dot, do you get I'm sure that's supposed to say benefit from all the different programs? Would you be better to run each program in the pink dot? So we've talked about this quite a bit actually too. Is one more effective than the other? Okay, let's go here in terms of level of density. When I say level of density, this body that we're in, that we're sitting here in space and time, is matter, material form. Okay. The information field is simple, pure energy, just energy. The information field is essentially outside of density. It's in both internal and external, but the information field is the quantum field, the divine intelligence. And what that is, as the discovery of quantum science starts to get clearer, or more information starts to be produced, we start understanding that the tiny and the tiny and the tiny and the tiny are actually interlaced, right? There's no separation. And yet in the big, such as this field of density, I'm sitting here in this space and time, Jake's sitting there in that space and time. And even if we were sitting side by side and we just ran at 100 miles an hour at each other, we're going to collide because we're two material forms that won't combine, right? We would bounce off each other. And yet at the tiny, we're nothing but vibrational energy that has no difference. So when we're implementing energy into the field, when we're implementing it into the matter, the material form of the body, microcurrent and magnetic energy are what we're using. When we're implementing energy into the information field, our blueprint, now quantum entanglement is what we're using. We're using simple information coming from the quantum sensor. So, when it comes to one being more effective than the other, they are interlaced. And in one tangible form, where microcurrent, we're working with this body. The other one, we're working with the information field that designs this body. So in other words, we're manipulating the blueprint with the blue dot, the blueprint of you. We're putting frequencies into the information field to upregulate your blueprint. And then that goes through consciousness, through your mind, and then upregulates the cell structures of the body. I want you guys to understand that it has to get through consciousness. It has to get through the mind. So if we don't believe anything that this is doing is effective, or our diet is horrible, we don't believe anything helps us, we're just completely against all things, then nothing's going to get past the mind. And I promise you, the body's going to downregulate its health. Energy is going to be consumed, and there's not going to be anything left for healing. And the body becomes disordered and diseased. It requires a level of acceptance, right? And in the neuroscience, we call it accept, believe, and surrender to an idea. And then that starts to propagate cell information or increase, or I should say, influence the expression of these bodies. So I recommend that when you do a scan with your Blue Dot, it's going to give you 5 full pages of information. That's a lot of content. You can run all that if you want, but it's a lot of content. You're putting a lot of information into the field, right? I recommend that you break apart each one of those 5 pages and scan each page individually and start building a recipe with the number 1 being the number 1 and work your way down the list over at least a 7-day period, right? Run 3 a day. Just do the math. You're going to have 5 pages based on that scan. Each page can have up to how many? 12 programs available on each page. That's 60, right? If you break that down to just 3 a day, that's a month, right? You can go a whole month of programs. And I highly recommend that you interface, and stay with a specific scan for 30 days. It takes a while for this material body to shift. If you're bouncing around all the time doing a scan every day and different stuff all the time, how do you know what's working? You haven't given enough time. Okay. Anything you want to add to that, Jake?
No, that was perfect. Yeah, I was just gonna ask if you wanted to give your tips for how you do that, and you just went ahead and did it. So, Ken, what would you say, back to what you were talking about earlier, as far as someone's mindset going into this? Would you say that it's not necessarily talked about a lot, but would you say that's the most important thing for someone if they want to have the best experience possible with their Healy device, is their mindset going into it?
You know, Einstein himself proved the observer effect, right? When we take the particle, I mean, the energy matter, the particle itself, and we observe it into form, the influencer of the form of the material entity of this energy, the observer is the filtering mechanism, and the observer is consciousness. So, and if we just break down what is consciousness, well, it's each one of us. Each one of us has an individual consciousness and awareness. And whatever we believe, whatever we perceive, whatever personality traits that we have designed and developed is going to be the lens, the filtering mechanism in which all things are moved through. So if you don't believe that water has an effectiveness on your body, and you don't drink water because you don't believe it, then this body is going to have an outcome. The three-dimensional tangible body itself is the end result of our belief structure. So when we look in the mirror and go, I don't like this, I don't like that, I want to change this, I want to change that, where it starts is within our belief structures. Until we accept, believe, and surrender to a new idea, nothing new is going to happen. So even with Healy's doing its best. And here's the fun part: what Healy has programs to actually help your mind also believe something differently, right? It actually downregulates some of the chaotic activities of the brain and allowing for a more relaxed state in which we're not so hyper vigilant about every little thing. That relaxed state is where we gain dominion over some of the pre-programmed, I should say, long-lasting programs that are not serving us. So mindset. That is one of the most important things when we're looking at any change. Because nothing changes in your life until you change. So yeah, great subject, Jake.
Yeah, thanks, Ken. There's a question about that training. So I put that link into the chat for the Analyze 2 app training tomorrow. And there was a question, will it be recorded if they can't make it live? So this is on the Webinar Jam platform. We don't use it as much anymore here in the Americas because we've a lot of these calls are no longer global, they're just local here in the Americas. But from what I remember, Webinar Jam, as long as you register for the meeting and you don't make it live, you can view it via that same link that you get in your registration email at a later time. So I believe that's still the case. So if you can't make it live, you know you can't make it live, go ahead and register anyway for that call.
Yeah, you know, there's recordings, folks. We're always going to have a recording, and those get, you know, those get posted so we can review that. Let's see. Here's a question. Do the wristbands have the same kind of electric current that the TENS unit uses? This is a great question, and the answer is no. So TENS units, they gain their effectiveness by forcing tissues to contract, right? By giving a high enough current level to stimulate movement, to contraction. And the cell itself, or the TENS unit, is aggravated. It's angry. It's not happy because it's actually being forced to do something. Now, it's effective because we're stimulating muscle tissue to contract and release and contract and release at whatever the pulsations that the TENS unit program is asking it for. But it's essentially just an on and off. The frequency itself is when that's on and when that's off. That's the duration. It's called a frequency. But the current that's making that happen is fixed, right? It's not adjustable. It's fixed. And the significance of the TENS unit is that contraction helps to get like fluids in, waste out, forcing relaxation of certain tissues, and that's its benefit. Healy does none of that. You shouldn't be cranking the system up to where you actually even feel it, because Healy is sending a signal into the body through microcurrent. The TENS unit is high current. Healy is very low current, and it's sending a signal just so that electron flows through the body. That's it, flowing through the minerals, the waters, the conductive system of your body. And it's the electron flow has a pulsation to it. It has an oscillation to it. That's the frequencies that Healy's applying. And the significance of that is not so much the microcurrent. I mean, although the microcurrent is very effective on cell membrane or on protein synthesis and certain things with the cell. But what's carrying along on that microcurrent are these frequencies that speak to very specific systems, very specific organs and cells. It's very specific. So we know how to align various parts of us. And you should not feel that. Healy has an adjustment on the amplitude where the TENS unit does not necessarily have an amplitude adjustment. It has a duration adjustment and sequence adjustment. Healy has an amplitude adjustment, so you can turn it down and not actually feel it. That's the whole significance difference. It's going in subconsciously more than consciously. We don't want it to gain your conscious awareness, because what happens when you are wearing a TENS unit and it's sitting there going, right? You're feeling this pulsation and your mind is going, ooh, 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 you know, you're being aware of it. When our mind is aware of a specific thing going on like that, it has to start the evaluation process. The primitive brain says safe, not safe, safe, not safe. 3 times per second, it's saying safe, not safe, safe, not safe. That tends to stimulate the sympathetic nervous system, the fight or flight. We don't want that, right? Healy wants you to be in the parasympathetic, the rest and digest. So we don't want you to be feeling it. But great question. And there's a lot of comparison. I hear there's a lot of people comparing Healy to the TENS unit or to the PEMF or the Rife systems, that kind of thing. Let's see. So Christian answered, how do you hard close the app? So good. Thank you, Christian. He's on the spot. let's see what else we got.
So Izzy had a question about the MagHealy. It says, will the McMakin programs work through a soft case? So trying to figure out how to use it on her horse's knee without having to hold it. Yeah, definitely don't want to sit there and hold it the whole time. She's using a soft clamshell CD case for that she could hit. You know, that's something where cloth soft case like that isn't going to stop these magnetic waves from. So, you know, there's a lot of people that I know that use a case like that, or like a sort of like a one of like fanny packs or something like that, to just hold the MagHealy in a certain place or put it around their shoulders. So you know, that seemed like a good workaround to keep it on your horse's knee.
You know, you can, here's an interesting, it may be a little less of a fashion statement, but if you take the Healy and throw it inside of a pantyhose, or the MagHealy inside of pantyhose, right? It's just that, and you take that, wrap that around, whatever, it's going to stay put, right? And there's going to be absolutely no interference with the magnetic signal. The only thing that negates magnetic signaling is metallic or conductive material. Metallic or conductive. Water is conductive. So if you wrapped it around, wrapped a wet towel around it, which don't do that because it's water sensitive, anything with water or metallic strands or material is going to negate. More synthetic materials, more synthetic materials versus organic materials. Organic materials are less obstructive. And the more shear, whatever it is you're using, is going to be less obstructive. But yeah, magnetic signaling, it goes through, again, anything that's non-metallic or non-conductive. Okay. Let's see what else we got here.
Okay.
Got a few more minutes, right?
Yes. So there was a question back to what you were talking about earlier, Ken, about the Analyze app scanning, you know, the top 5 categories and then running them. You know, there's this question. This is one of our frequently asked questions is, you know, the range for how long to vibrate these programs is from milliseconds or, you know, to hours or custom, you know, whatever, however long you want to run them. So the question was, if someone were to run them for 8 hours, is that okay? And then I think, Ken, we talk about this a lot, is it depends on the person. You know, there's not one, it depends on what programs you're using, what your goal is. So, and there's not a right or wrong answer for that we can just say, okay, in general, yes, that's okay, or that's not okay. You always, I wouldn't start with anything nearly that long. But if it's one of these things where you have to listen to your own body and your own feedback to see. And again, if that's something where if you're wanting to vibrate these programs, maybe you don't vibrate them for as long. Maybe instead you vibrate them for, you know, a shorter period of time, and then you run the top program in each of those groups using the electrodes and the Healy 2 app as well, and sort of combine them versus focusing so much time only on the Analyze app.
You know, we're looking at things from what we believe, what we perceive. We've always perceived things in time, in measurements of time. Like it takes X amount of time to get from this spot to the other, or this amount of time to, you know, to get a job and to move up the scale. It's around time. And Healy works with energy. Energy has a whole different phenomenon. The significance, or I should say the unifying field for energy is space. Energy is existent in all time. All time. Energy is always infinitely present. But where it differentiates is in how it affects this material self. The nervous system, right? Let's go here for a second. How many of you guys have ever had an aha moment, right? An aha moment. You know what I mean? Like you learn something new, you read a book, you go to an event, somebody tells you this amazing information, you listen to a podcast, whatever, aha moment. The aha moment upregulates your brain in an instant, right? You learn something new synaptic connections are built and understood, and that changes the nervous system. That happens in an instant, speed of light. However, the systems, organs, cells, tissues, muscles, bones, or all those parts of you take more time because they're material content. They take more time to upregulate. So when you send or vibrate programs into your field, it happens, your field is upregulated in an instant, speed of light, but the body takes more time. And this is why I said earlier that to use a specific analysis for like a month, for a period of time, so that you can watch the body shift and change, give it time to do so. So when you're running something longer periods of time, you're just influencing your field longer periods of time. If you're running on the body itself, you're influencing the body for longer periods of time. As Jake said, pay attention. I know some people that can't run things for more than a couple of seconds. They're very sensitive. So pay attention. And what I want you to pay attention to specifically is discomfort, because the effects of a program on the body, a lot of the time, it's a realignment. And what I said earlier, when you get an aha moment, the nervous system upregulates in a moment. But for that nervous system to reconnect, and it literally does reconnect with muscles, tissues, components that it's orchestrating to and receiving information from, there's a bit of a dissonance where the nervous system is upregulated. Like for instance, if you read a book on how to do a flying sidekick in martial arts, right? You might see pictures and videos and read a book, but then you go and try doing it. The mind is upregulated, the nervous system is upregulated, but the muscles and the ability of the body need some training. And sometimes that's a little painful when you try that technique and you fall on your face, or you've, overextended a muscle, or you've tasked a muscle structure more than it's used to, right? So you got to give it time. All right. What else we got? So let's see. Can you please explain vital substance programs? It seems it boosts amino acid production. Okay. So vital substances, these are vitamins, minerals, those kind of things. So everything has a frequency, as I was talking about earlier. Everything is energy. So every vitamin you've ever taken, every food you've ever eaten, every micronutrient, macronutrient, every mineral, everything has got a frequency. And so Healy has studied this and created frequencies or downloaded frequencies digitally of these substances, and then put combinations together to promote certain outcomes, right? So in other words, if you want better thought or a better memory, there's certain minerals and nutrients that can promote memory and brain function, and those are within this. And so then you run those programs. If you've got the actual subscription or the module, you can run the microcurrent in the body. You can also run it from the Blue app in just vibration mode. But that's what you're doing. You're actually giving the body the frequency of those nutrients, of that content. Doesn't mean that you don't need to eat. It's just, think of it this way. When we're building an energy within the body of a specific nutrient or amino acid, as you mentioned, or whatever the vital substance is, when we're building an energy profile within the body of understanding, an energy profile of understanding, right? Because we're giving the frequency to the body, and then you eat that component. You eat the foods that have that nutrient in it. You're increasing bioavailability. Bioavailability is how any nutrient gets into the body. Part of that bioavailability is the way that it's purity, right? If you eat, say, non-GMO, organic content. There's less toxic burden for the body to also have to process at the same time as trying to process the proteins and the vitamins and minerals and nutrients, right? It's all happening at the same time. And so you get a better bioavailability of it. The way things are prepared, for instance, is another way we increase bioavailability, but also by preparing cell receptor sites through energetic influence is another way. And that's what the Healy does, is increase that bioavailability. Right? Genius, I say, genius. Okay. Pink is quantum and blue is matter? No, other way around.
Yeah.
Pink is material form. The pink app is the microcurrent going through the body in material, time, and space. The blue app is interfacing quantum entanglement with a client, an intention and a attention. That's the quantum field. And that's where the quantum sensor comes in. And I know, as an engineer, I know how that works. It's genius. I'm telling you. Okay.
The question from Izzy says that, do the frequencies live in the app or on the Healy? Because that's, yeah, interesting question, because when you're running these programs and it's, say, loading databases, or you pick a program in the Healy 2 app, and then you see it's transmitting that data to your Healy device. So that information isn't there on the Healy. It's stored, essentially in the app, the cloud, which connects to the cloud in that way. But the only thing that's really stored there, I would say, is if you've transmitted a program to your Healy app, to your Healy device, and then you go away and then you come back and run it again. If you run that same program again, it's already there. You notice you don't have to load it again. It's ready to run. So that's kind of the limitation of what's stored on the device itself.
Yeah, look at it this way. The apps themselves, when you load them from the App Store, you can put them on your phone, right? But they're just skeletal structures waiting. They're basically a bunch of empty shelves waiting for you to put the library of books on there. So it's a skeletal structure. And then when it syncs up with your Healy, the serial number, right, and your login credentials, those things tell the app what edition you have. And then with whatever edition you have comes what? It comes the program pages, right? That's how Healy and you interface with what you've purchased. Okay. So the app itself is a skeletal structure waiting for an update, waiting for you to do an update. And then once you do the update, all of the programs are then loaded. As I say, each program page is a book. All those books are put on the shelf, and you can just pull a book off the shelf and read it, right? Well, the way it's read is with Healy. It loads a chapter from one of those books, aka a program, into the Healy. That if it's the blue app, it loads that microcurrent program into the Healy. Then the Healy runs it through your body. Once it's loaded on the Healy, it doesn't need the app anymore either, right? It doesn't need the cloud, doesn't need the app, doesn't need anything. It's already loaded into the Healy's memory. And as Jake said, when that program's over and you put your Healy away and tomorrow you come back, you turn your Healy on, that program is still loaded in the Healy's memory, and it will start again without you doing anything. You just hit the on button and boom, it starts running automatically, and that program will run again and again and again and again until you reload. In other words, you take a new book off the shelf, put a new chapter in the Healy, and run a different program. Okay. So once everything is loaded into the apps, the initial initiation, right? The initial download and updates, you're good to go. This is why you can go anywhere without Wi-Fi. Once you've got it all loaded, you go, I go out in the woods, I go in the middle of nowhere, and I can run my Healy because it's just requires the Bluetooth signal between my smart device, aka the app, and the Healy hardware to send that information to the Healy and then implement it into my body or into the field. Okay.
And so I know we're at the hour here. One last question regarding natural cycle. There's a lot of people running natural cycle with the start of summer a few days ago. So the question was, does the natural cycle ever ask you to run solar daily, or is it always solar stabilization? And when do you run the solar daily? So again, we always like to point back to the Healy app manual. So I'm gonna, before we go, I just want to share my screen and just show where this is discussed here in the Healy 2. So this manual is available within the Healy 2 app, or you can also download it from your back office in the download section. But if you go to the natural cycle section, page 39, and scroll down, you'll see here in the first weeks of a natural cycle, the daily stabilization program is applied. But when the stabilizing effect becomes noticeable, you switch to the stabilizing program according to the solar cycle. And it mentions that the Heal Advisor module adjusts this automatically as well. So if you just started and it's only been a few days, I mentioned here the first few weeks, it's the stabilization before it switches over to the daily solar.
I love that. The natural cycle is it's a cool invention, creation by Nuno Nina, right? And
Yeah.
he's really aligned with understanding how the planets and our entire circadian rhythm and solar system, everything's connected, folks. So you can't run away. You live on this planet, you're part of us. All right, guys. Well, hey, thank you so much for being here. If you guys found value in the chat, you can save the chat by clicking on those three little dots at the very bottom left of the screen. And at the end of our call, there'll be an icon that pops up on your computer screen that says save the chat. That's only done if you're on your PC or laptop. If you're on a mobile device, it won't work. But if you found some value in there, there's some links and some stuff that Jake put in and lots of great answers that Christian provided. So, and of course, I always love it when our participants are in there interacting and saying, hey, this is what I do, and here's how it works. I love that. It's awesome. We're big.
And then join us again for that Analyze 2 app training with Martin Whitman tomorrow at noon Eastern time. And a reminder, so next Tuesday is 4th of July, so we're not going to have this call, but save all your questions for the week after, and we'll be back at it. So
I know how it is trying to remember. A question comes in the moment, write them down. Write them down, and we'll be happy to unpack them right here in a couple of weeks. So thanks everybody for being here. And again, we'll see you soon, and love you all. Bye for now.